Hi, everyone. Welcome to our webinar today. Thanks for joining us. We're just going to hang out for a couple more minutes and wait for some more attendees to join. So bear with us. I'll get back to you in about 3 minutes and we'll get started. Thanks. All right, everybody. Looks like we've got a quorum here, so we're going to get started. Thanks for coming. Welcome to our community webinar today, where we're going to talk about some cool technology that'll help you drive more leads, increase your conversions, improve your experience with the borrower and your realtor partners as well. My name is Ian Miller. I'm the CMO here at MCT. I'm filling in for Bill Peterson today. And so before we get started, just a couple of logistics. During the webinar, feel free to ask questions anytime. You'll see there's a questions module in your webinar panel that you can use to type those in. I'll do my best to field those and get them answered right away if it's appropriate, but we'll also have a Q&A section that should have plenty of time to answer all your questions at the end of the webinar. To kick things off, you probably know MCT as a hedge advisor first, and for the services and software that we provide in the secondary marketing space. But we want to be a partner in more than just secondary marketing. And so whenever we find a solution that's really having an impact for some of our lenders that we think is valuable, we like to share that. And so I know many of you have probably experienced that before, whether through our MCT Exchange conferences or through referrals that you've gotten from your MCT representative. So this community webinar is an example of that. Not necessarily in the secondary marketing wheelhouse, but still something that we think is groundbreaking and has potential to really positively impact your business. So I'd like to welcome our two presenters today. We've got Patrick O'Brien, the CEO of LenderLogix. The quick qual solution by LenderLogix is kind of the main subject that we're going to review today. And we also have Mike Donahue. He's the president of Premium Mortgage, and they've been an MCT client for a little over 5 years. So, gentlemen, welcome. Mike, do you want to start and tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. First of all, I want to kind of comment. MCT as a vendor for me has been invaluable over the last 5 years. Whenever we have a decision to make, whether it's what LOS system or pricing engine or new investors to sign up with, usually my first phone call is to Bill and to ask him. And I think that when you make decisions with regards to software, whether it be CRM or LOS or pricing, it's easy to get into something. It's difficult to get out of it. So I generally lean on MCT's other clients to give me feedback on their experiences, which is kind of why I'm willing to do this today, because I know how difficult it is to make a commitment to new technology, and I think this one is worthwhile for my peers. We're a mortgage banker based in Western New York. We do about $850 million a year. 95% of our production is purchase money mortgages. We're licensed in some other states, but we really focus on New York mainly. And our model has been, realtor referrals since day one. And so when Patrick came to me with this specific technology, he showed me this cool app that, borrowers could log on to, and they could run scenarios and issue themselves pre-qualification letters. And my immediate response is, well, what does it do for the realtor? And Patrick, thought about it and went back to the drawing board and kind of modified the program to suit the needs of both the realtor, my loan officer, and the borrower simultaneously. And so my experience has been very positive. I can tell you that if I were to tell my loan officers tomorrow I was going to get rid of it, there would be a public hanging probably. So the adoption rate was slow, but once it was adopted, it would be very difficult to unadopt, so to speak.
Awesome. Cool. Well, thank you, Mike. Pat, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and about LenderLogix?
Sure. We're a software company that provides software into the mortgage lending space. My background is I started in mortgage banking about 20 years ago, originated for about 10 years, and was pulled into a technology, a large a regional bank. Started the company about 3 years ago with some really smart software engineers, and one of the products among several that we sell in the mortgage space is the QuickQual software, which we're going to demonstrate to you now.
Awesome. Thanks, Pat. Perfect. So, with that context from Mike, I think we can probably go ahead and hear a little bit about the QuickQual solution, what it is, and then we can dig a little bit more back into Premium's results and experience with it as we go.
Sure, yeah. So the QuickQual software is essentially an alternative to issuing paper pre-qualification or pre-approval letters to our borrowers. It's designed to boost pull-through. So we spend a lot of money to pre-qualify buyers. We spend money in credit reports. We spend money to acquire them. We want to get them closed. So this software is designed to do that. Consumers have been trained by Amazon. They expect the Amazon experience, and throughout the mortgage process, that's no exception. So the QuickQual product sort of serves that need for consumers, while at the same time keeping loan officers in control of the transaction. Loan officers at the center of the transaction. We're not trying to introduce software that's eliminating the loan officer, simply giving them the tools to sort of technically enable their home buyers. And it's designed to turbocharge the production of your high producing loan officers. So our best users are high producers. These are the folks that just don't have any additional capacity to take more loans. So this software sort of frees them up from some of the menial tasks that are associated with being a loan officer, and helps them write more loans, boost the production of your top loan officers. I'm going to go a little off script here. I'm going to try to mirror my phone here. So I have some screenshots. So
Perfect.
Let's see if you see my iPhone there, Ian.
Yeah, it looks great.
Okay. All right. So essentially, what we figured we'd do is just kind of walk everybody through exactly how the software works, what the borrower sees. Just spend a couple minutes here. So, like I said before, in lieu of issuing your borrower a paper or a PDF pre-qualification letter, right in the LOS, you send a QuickQual, and the QuickQual is delivered either via email or text message. I'm pulling up a text message here. So this is what the borrower sees. The borrower gets a text message. They click a link. Within that text message, there's a PIN number. So the borrower enters that PIN number. And essentially what they're presented is all the information that they asked to be qualified for on their phone. So in this situation, the borrower was looking at a conventional loan, 30-year fixed, sale price at $250,000, property taxes is $6,000. And what we're doing is we're presenting the borrower what the monthly payment is, so P&I, taxes, insurance, PMI. I can hit this closing cost tab here. It's going to lay out exactly how much that borrower needs in terms of cash to close, itemization of the closing costs. So everything's there for them. And every piece of information that they need to kind of help them make a decision that they're normally going to be going to their loan officer to ask for is right here. Now at the bottom of the screen here, there's a button that says issue pre-qualification letter. So in this scenario, this $250,000 purchase price, the borrower qualifies. So they can hit a button here that says issue pre-qualification letter. And what it's doing is it's generating a signed pre-qualification letter. This is, in this example, is Premium Mortgage's version, their custom letter, signed by the loan officer for that dollar amount. You can see that it's $250,000 purchase price. So they have it right there. They don't have to go to the loan officer and call them and ask them for a letter or anything like that. They're able to do that. They're able to text it or email it right from their phone. Now, as we know, no borrower ever ends up using the original pre-qualification that they're given. They look at different houses and they're going to be calling the loan officer or looking for some additional information in terms of what's the monthly payment on this house? What are my closing costs if I offer that? So what the software allows the customer to do is to change it up. So in this situation, they're not looking at a house for $250,000. They're looking at one for $240,000, and the taxes aren't $6,000. They're $4,236. And what it's done is it's given the borrower immediate feedback in terms of what the monthly payment is. So the PMI is dynamic, the P&I is dynamic. So instead of the original payment, now they're $1,604 a month. And their closing costs, in terms of cash they need to close, that's all changed. It's running a calculator, updating the transfer tax, mortgage tax, title insurance to tell them exactly what they need in that scenario for $240,000 versus $250,000. In that scenario, they still qualify, so they're able to hit a button here that says issue pre-qualification letter. And now instead of a letter for $250,000 purchase price, they've just generated a letter for $240,000. And they haven't had to go back to the loan officer to ask them, a night or on a weekend to update the letter for them. So they're able to do everything from their phone themselves. And what it's doing is, which we'll demonstrate a little bit later, is collecting the data in terms of what the borrower is doing, packaging it up, and presenting it to the loan officer in a meaningful way so the loan officer can take action. I'm also
so what happens when a borrower goes outside of the limits there? Is that
okay.
Pinging up against the LOS? And
yeah, so there's basically the loan officer sets up the guidelines when they originally issue the pre-qualification to determine what they're comfortable with. So again, the loan officer is at the center of the transaction. We allow the loan officer to be a loan officer and let them make the decision on how conservative they want to be. There's actually some lenders that we have the option that they don't want the borrower to even be able to issue a letter, maybe. So instead of that button saying issue pre-qualification letter, it says request letter, and then the loan officer has to get involved. So in situations that are maybe a little bit more conservative, the loan officer does have that option. Now in this situation, you see that I entered $600,000. It's telling me that the monthly payment, the max monthly payment that the loan officer set the quick qual for was $2,800. This is $3,400. They don't qualify. So that button to issue the pre-qualification letter now is gone. And it's just advising the borrower that the monthly payment's too high.
Cool.
Patrick, our experience has been that we've had to train the loan officers to pre-qualify the people for a maximum as opposed to what the borrower wanted to be pre-qualified for. Inevitably, they're looking to go 10, 15, 20,000 higher, especially in the competitive markets that we're in right now. And the net result that we've seen is more of our borrowers have, they've done the calculation on the app and seen that the payment's only $50 more, and they've stretched a little bit on purchase price and gotten a transaction done that they otherwise might not have done.
Nice.
Yeah, now also sort of an extension of this is, like Mike mentioned before, this is excellent functionality for the borrower, but what are we doing for the real estate agent? So when a loan officer issues a quick call to a borrower, they also, at their option, have the ability to issue it to the real estate agent as well. So here is what the real estate agent would see. The real estate agent is able to log in. They're able to see any of the pre-qualifications that have been assigned to them by that lender. So, you know, they may work with 2 or 3 different loan officers and have 2 or 3 different pending transactions. They're all going to be in one spot for them. So that real estate agent's able to select Michael D. Purchaser, click View Pre-Approval. It pulls open their qualification criteria, and that real estate agent is able to say, okay, well, instead of 200,000, this borrower needs to go to 202. The taxes are $5,423. They still qualify, so that issue pre-qualification letter is there. They can hit that button. They can view it as a PDF. Again, they can text it. They can mail it. They can drop it into their dot loops. So a lot of realtors you'll see use transaction management software, dot loop, so they'd be able to pull in a PDF into that software. So again, they're not having to call their loan officer and wait to submit an offer. They're able to do these things right from their phone without having to wait. Immediate feedback. They're able to talk to their customers, help them through different scenarios where if they have to offer another $2,000 or $3,000 to make a deal work, they're able to kind of figure that stuff out immediately.
I have an audience question that seems kind of interesting. This just came in, and they're interested in how you guys have worked out data sharing with the realtor, and particularly if there's any non-public information shared. How does that work?
So,
Patrick,
I'm sorry?
You can go, maybe that's for Mike. Mike might know better for his experience anyway.
So in order for us to issue the quick qual to the agent, we have to get the borrower's consent. And we don't transmit any NPI through the app at all. It's only data that would calculate payments, taxes, and closing costs.
Thanks, Mike. Perfect.
Yeah, so just to add to that, Ian, like at any time, the borrower also has functionality within their app. If they gave consent to share with the real estate agent, they can also change that after the fact. So it essentially takes the access away from that agent. So
Gotcha.
it's, they're really in full control of that process.
Perfect. And then, while we're on the subject, Mike, I understand that kind of realtor-facing experience was kind of the key to getting the system to work perfectly for you. Can you speak maybe a little bit more to how that's supported the realtor relationships that your loan officers have?
Yeah, so what's interesting is when we first rolled it out, a couple of loan officers embraced it, and I have, one top producing loan officer that would still take his 1003s on a handwritten if he could, and he would not embrace it. And it got to a point where he had a transaction with an agent that worked for somebody else in our office, and he said, okay, just send me over the quick qual. And he's like, I don't know how to. And then it started to snowball from there. The requests started coming from the agents as opposed to me trying to, encourage the loan officer to adopt it. They're getting, a pull from the agent side. With these offers going back and forth the way I see them, I remember being a loan officer and redoing the same pre-qual letter 15 times in $2,000 increments because the agent doesn't want to show their hand, so to speak.
Right.
This puts that functionality right at the borrower's fingertips and at the agent's fingertips.
Nice. Oh, so that's perfect, and it's cool that the realtor is able to regenerate that themselves too, kind of just like the borrower can. Maybe this is what you're going to head to next anyway, Pat, but kind of the dashboard experience to see, how many times that, new letters have been issued, what that data was. Is that something you were thinking about sharing a little bit on?
Yeah, so I just wanted to kind of share a couple, like I mentioned earlier, and as you kind of segued into. So as the borrower and the real estate agent are interacting and updating and generating letters, we're collecting a tremendous amount of data that allows us to kind of see exactly what's going on in that borrower's world. So think about it. We hand somebody a paper or PDF pre-qualification letter. We just kind of hope they come back to us or call us if they have a question. What this software allows us to do is kind of see what's happening and kind of what that borrower is up to, and then deliver that information to the loan officer in a way that is actionable, so they can reach out to the borrower at the right time with the right information, rather than just kind of hoping that the borrower calls back at the right time. So there's a screenshot here that just kind of shows a sample of sort of a historical timeline of what the loan officer is informed of. I mean, anytime that borrower logs in, anytime they generate a letter or the realtor generates a letter, and they update those figures, that information is being reported back to the loan officer. There's a kind of a powerful chart that I just pulled up here that kind of walks through exactly what a loan officer might see when they log in. So, and this is a chart from one of Mike's borrowers who shopped here. So, on July 16th, a loan officer issued a borrower a quick qual, and they logged in a couple times. These are these first two blue humps there. They logged in a few times, checked it out, and then there's a lull for about 2 weeks where the borrower didn't do anything. It kind of went quiet, and then all of a sudden, it's August 4th through the 6th here, a massive amount of logins. Up on the 5th is 12 logins per day. So if we look forward ahead to that red dotted line, we know that the borrower applied for a mortgage with premium on that day, on the 11th, that this borrower applied for a mortgage on the 11th. It's fairly obvious that on the 5th, they were negotiating a sale price. You could see that they hadn't found any houses, and then out of the blue comes a tremendous amount of activity. Now, if I'm the loan officer, having the knowledge to know that that was happening at that point in time gives me a tremendous advantage to be able to kind of reach out to my borrower, make sure that I'm answering their questions, rather than just hoping that they call me at that point in time after they sign a contract. The data kind of informs what action I should take.
Now, Patrick, it also relates back to the agent. If we see that the borrower issued a pre-qual letter at 7 o'clock on Sunday night, Monday morning we're going to call the agent and say, how did that offer go? Of course, you don't want the agent to go, what offer? Maybe you're making them aware of something they didn't know. So you're helping your agent keep their buyers kind of in the corral as well.
Excellent. So I have a question from the audience again here. You probably knew this one was coming, Pat, but we're curious what this solution costs.
We charge, so there's a base setup fee per loan officer of $50 per month. And then for each quick qual that's issued, we charge $5. So at the point in time that the quick qual has been issued, the borrower can do whatever they want. They can issue as many pre-quals as they want. The realtor can log in, issue as many pre-quals. So for the life of that quote unquote loan, that $5 covers it. That's just kind of covers the variable cost of the APIs for the title insurance, mortgage tax, LOS costs, things like that. So $50 base cost per loan officer, and then $5 per quick qual issued.
Perfect, thanks.
So Patrick, I don't see on here, after it goes to application, the quick qual changes.
Correct. If I'm going to pair my phone again here to see if I can do this in real time. So this is dependent on LOS. If we have the appropriate integration, but I can pull up yours to show that after a loan moves from application or moves from a pre-approval into application, the agent's also able to log in and kind of see what's going on there, what milestone it's at. they're able to take a look and see what, where it's at, what the progress looks like. So all that information's there that, kind of follow them through the process. But that's also just depends on what LOS the client's on. So Mike, these are just some of the kind of how we went with premium. We rolled it out initially January 2018. As Mike said, we added in the realtor functionality at their request a few months later, and as he said, there was a little bit of an adoption curve. So I don't know if you want to talk through this video on the timeline here, Mike. I'm going to play this.
Yeah, so we were Pat's first client, and we were kind of beta testing this for the first few months. And you can see where we integrated the realtor functionality. And once it kind of got out to the real estate community, it kind of exploded in the spring market of 2019. These are our daily logins, and you can see how quickly it increased when we started bringing it out to the agents. And it's still growing every day now. I know Patrick did for me at one point a heat map which shows the logins by its geocode. And I don't know if you have it, Patrick, but it's pretty cool. I can show the logins on a map. And so I can see when I rolled it out in Buffalo, when I rolled it out in Syracuse, when I rolled it out in Rochester, when I rolled it out in Albany. And then you can see borrowers that, have taken it to another state, and it shows up. So it geocodes where everything's coming from. So there's a lot of powerful data behind here that we haven't even scratched the surface of using yet. But the engagement on the way of the borrower is off the charts as far as we're concerned. The one thing that was important to me is that, we weren't just buying something to make the loan officer's job easier. We wanted to actually get a return on our investment. And what we were able to find out was that our conversion rate, we do data analytics. We look at how many credit reports do we pull in July, tells me how many applications we're going to have in probably August. And usually that number runs in the 35 to 36% range. And since we converted over to issuing the quick quals, we have tracked those, and I believe we're over 50% pre-qual to application now. So it's not like we're getting more business from it. We're converting more of the leads we've already had that weren't converting before because they were just slipping off the plate. And because the borrowers aren't going out to use a third-party website, we've all heard Rocket Mortgage, right? I make the joke that, a Rocket Mortgage is like the Zestimate of pre-qual letters. Once they go out to those sites are dropping cookies on their thing, and they're getting telemarketed, for rate shopping. So we've not only seen an increase in our conversion rate, we've seen less price exceptions, and it really is, it puts kind of like an electronic tag on your consumer until they make the purchase transaction. And what's particularly interesting to me is we spend an awful lot of money on our CRM, and that's for a borrower who has already closed, and we're going to follow up with them, hopefully get a transaction from them in 5 years. These people are coming into the front of our system as qualified leads, and we really didn't spend much money at all marketing to those who are in our pre-qualification pipeline. We're spending all of our time doing branding and following up with people who are already closed. By redirecting our effort to the people that we pre-qualified, we're getting much better bang for our buck.
Nice. I have a quick question that's kind of related for you, Mike, from one of our audience members here. So, you've talked kind of about the LO adoption curve that you had and how that's been picked up, as well as the realtors and how they supported it. But have you noticed that borrowers just naturally pick this up and use it, or have you had any challenges with borrower adoption? I mean, it sounds like, many of the ones you work with may have past experience with a similar system, like a Rocket Mortgage too.
Yeah, so most of the systems that I've seen really force the borrower to do a lot of Q&A when they're getting access to it. This is leaving the traditional interview process to the loan officer still, so that the data that's going into the system is verified by your loan officer. And then the functionality is very easy. I can tell you that users from millennials to seniors use this as easily as the other. I mean, the adoption rate for the borrowers was much better than that of the loan officers. I mean, the loan officers really believed that this was going to create some sort of a gap between them and their consumer, so that they didn't have a personalized relationship. And what they came to find out was it gave them a stronger relationship, because they felt as though they were answering their questions, at 11 o'clock at night while they're sitting on their couch. They go into the app and they, make some changes to their pre-qualification letter, and they feel as though that was done for them by their loan officer, and their loan officer's not responding. They're going to see the next morning that they did it. On the slide you have up now, I find it remarkable. We've issued 22,572 pre-qualification letters. I mean, if each of those just took 5 minutes, and we know that that's probably not the case, you got to answer the call, you got to return the call, you got to get the information, run new numbers, and then send it out. Who do you want it to go to? It's funny. I was at Home Depot the other day, and I used a self-service checkout for like the first time in my life, and I realized how much I like it. Borrowers, I've come to find, don't necessarily want to ask you a lot of questions once you've given them a definitive answer, but they will ask an app a question that won't judge them for asking it, right? And so what we've seen is the average purchase price our average loan amount's gone up as well. Not a huge amount, but enough to be noticeable for us.
Excellent. All right, so how are we doing, Pat? Did you have any other key pieces you wanted to share before we open it up for more questions?
I mean, I'll just add a little bit of color to this slide here, just some things that stand out. What we've, some surprising things maybe is average number of logins from the borrower on a quick qual, 21. So that's 21 times a borrower had a question. Like Mike said, maybe they wouldn't have reached out to the loan officer to ask the question. They would have sought that answer somewhere else. Perhaps downloaded a Zillow mortgage calculator, or ended up at Rocket Mortgage. So that's that's kind of an interesting statistic we kind of see across the board. Usually is somewhere in that range as far as logins, and also number of days from quick qual to application, 47. So what are we doing for that 47 days? That's kind of allowing that borrower to kind of stay in our ecosystem. And then also kind of what we touched on, as Mike touched on before, 50% of all the quick quals issued in his shop have turned into an application. So that's a pretty impressive conversion rate, and it's much higher than when we see loan officers issuing pre-qualifications using traditional method.
Excellent. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Pat, for giving us that demonstration, and Mike for your context. At this time, we're going to open up to questions from the audience. I've got a few already, but anyone who's got any questions, please feel free to use the questions function in your GoToWebinar app to type those in and share them with us, and we can get them addressed now. So kind of one area that I remember from our previous discussions that I just was curious about, we've talked about some of the challenges associated with this strategy as far as LO adoption, their concerns about, putting this technology in between themselves and the borrower, and how that's really not turned out the way they expected. Mike, you shared a little bit of experience about how maybe you had this tool was so effective that maybe it caused some, realtors to overuse it, or to kind of almost use it for the purposes of the technology. Can you speak to that experience?
Yeah. Here's the pain point. So we found that the technology was so effective on the realtor side, we saw an uptick in pre-qualifications that were coming to us, but the borrower was going to somebody else, meaning that the agent why did they have the functionality of our pre-qualification, knowing that they were going to refer the client someplace else after they got their offer accepted? And so we had to go so far as to ask our bank attorneys to put something in their approval letters to dissuade them from doing that, basically indicating that they needed to get permission if they're going to change lenders from the letter that was provided with the offer. And so that's the worst thing that's happened to us is we've gotten looks at transactions that we were never going to get.
Nice. Excellent. So this next one is for Pat. So Pat, we've got someone curious about the data syncing to and from Encompass. So could you just share about the data connectivity and which LOSs work with this solution and how they work?
Sure. We have our own APIs built. So essentially, any system, essentially we can integrate with that has that functionality available. So those in terms of like specific integrations with each LOS, we usually review that with clients on an individual basis, but it's typically API based and more than adequate for the transactions we're looking at.
Just, Patrick, what LOSs have you already interfaced with? I know we have Encompass.
Yeah, Encompass is primary, Byte, Calyx. We have a few custom things that are Unify based, but we've had looks at most of them, and the functionality is there in terms of the integration, so that's usually not too big of a hurdle.
So you guys can kind of set it up to talk to any other system that has an API, you'd say?
Correct. I think Mike would probably echo this statement that we work very closely with the lender. We want to make sure that it works for them. So the pre-qualification letter and everything that's generated is highly customized to whatever that lender's needs are. So we get our hands dirty, and we talk to just have discussions with each lender about what is important to them, and we have the ability to kind of build those integrations in house.
Excellent.
So it's something that's interesting for the adoption for us is I could see that it was being effective, and I still had those loan officers that do not adopt technology very quickly. And what we ended up doing is in Encompass, pre-qualification letters were issued by clicking on a button on the home screen, right? And it would create a PDF that you could print and or email. And at the point where I had probably 25% of my LOs that were not using the quick qual, we just took that button away. If you want to issue a pre-qual, you got to issue it through this. And once they started doing that, they realized how much easier it was. So they took the path of least resistance, and the path of least resistance was using the app, and it's baked right into the home screen on Encompass. I mean, even I can do it, and I'm not originating.
Nice. All right, so a couple more audience questions here. We had one, sounds like this one's for you, Pat. Is there an archive of the letters that are issued, and can those be used for compliance purposes?
Yes, if I think if I, one of my previous slides had a history screen that,
there it is.
yeah, if you see right under the borrower insights, there's a tab that says letter history. So not only is the entire history of the logins archived, but every single letter is archived, which is, when you think about it, we talk to most lenders that we talk to, what you end up finding is the loan officers using Microsoft Word to, generate their letters. So, most LOs are, at every lender we've talked to, there's LOs that are just using Microsoft Word and just, updating the name, updating the dollar amount. So, this gives them a better solution than that, certainly, while at the same time keeping an archive of all those letters that can be accessed at any time.
Patrick, an observation that I'll make that wasn't brought up is, I know for my entire career, I've had a hard time getting loan officers to follow up on their pre-quals. And this system, the pre-qualification expires. Was it 90 days, Pat?
We leave that up to each lender. I think in your shop you do 90 days. So at we customize that per lender.
Right. And so what it does is it gives the borrower a reminder that their pre-approval is expiring, and it also reminds the loan officer, and so it gives them a trigger to follow up with the customer. I mean, listen, the bottom line is this system helps me convert more of the leads that I already have, not create more leads.
All right, let's see. So 2 more questions. We've got one that is asking about how are the changes in mortgage tax from county to county calculated when you're offering the detailed closing cost estimates?
So within the initial setup out of the LOS, it pulls the county for the where that borrower's looking, and that's going to be the basis for the computation of closing costs, so the tax, title, insurance, or whatever the case is. The loan officer has the ability in their portal to change that. So it's set up upfront, and the borrower does not change that until such time that it needs to be changed, where it's a quick switch on the loan officer's end in order to update that so it's picked up.
Seller's concessions?
Yeah, seller concessions are fully accounted for. It's obviously product-based. The loan officer has the choice to display seller concessions, so you're not exposing seller concessions to somebody that it already hasn't been discussed with by the loan officer. In the event that the loan officer does choose to expose those seller concessions in the transaction, all the appropriate limits are baked in. So whether it's a percentage of purchase price, whether it's seller concessions can't exceed the total of the prepaids and the closing costs. So the calculator functionality is extraordinarily robust and kind of keeps everybody where they should be. So it reflects adequately.
All right, last question here. Oh, go ahead, Mike.
An observation that I have is anytime that we adopt any new technology, I always get there's always that one loan officer or two that find a problem with it, something to complain about. I don't like this, or I don't like that. I can actually say not one loan officer has given me any negative feedback on this. It's only been positive.
All right, Mike, well, you get to finish. We got an audience question. Hopefully, maybe this will have to be for another webinar, but what CRM system do you recommend?
Well, that kind of goes to my statement just now. We use Top of Mind, and I get pushback from the LOs all the time. I don't quite like it, and I think you guys should have another webinar on CRMs, because I haven't found one I like it. I'd love to get a suggestion from somebody else on what's better. Me and Patrick have been actually talking about trying to convert the quick qual into a CRM at the end of it, because we've already got it tracking the transaction from pre-qualification through the end of the transaction. We've got nothing for post-transaction, which, I mean, we're using that CRM, but it's significantly more expensive than quick qual is, and it's not really generating us any measurable business. It's just branding for us. So I would love for you guys to do another webinar and talk about CRM. I do know that we switched over to Encompass about, I'd say, 3 years ago, and it was one of the most difficult decisions that we ever had to make as a company. And I know I called up Bill and kind of surveyed some of his clients to find out, the good, the bad, and the ugly for different systems. And the feedback on Encompass from everybody was always, well, it's expensive, but it does everything. Well, it's expensive, but it does everything. And so when the only complaint is it's expensive, it's usually there's a reason for it, because it's good. And I'm glad that we went with Encompass, and it is expensive, but I like to be able to have peers to bounce these questions off of. And CRM is my next big one to tackle, I think.
Perfect. Well, hopefully we can have some of those discussions at our upcoming conference. But until then, gentlemen, thank you both for presenting today. Really appreciate your willingness to share about your personal process and experience, Mike. And Pat, thanks for an excellent demo. We'll look forward to having you guys out again sometime. And everybody else, thanks for joining us. We'll be following up with the recording and the slide deck from this presentation probably later today. So thanks, everybody. Have a great day.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Ian.